So here's the thing about the Galactic Council. When you've got a bureaucracy spanning 47 star systems employing thousands of xenobiologists and operating on a budget that could buy a small moon, you'd think someone would double-check their homework. You'd think that. You'd be wrong. Commander Quellic had spent 30 years of his life studying Earth. 30 years. That's longer than most humans spend in their careers before they realize they hate their jobs and become life coaches. But Quellic wasn't just any xenobiologist. He was the xenobiologist, the go-to expert on Sol 3, also known as Earth, also known as that weird blue marble nobody wanted to touch with a 10-foot plasma rod. His credentials were impeccable. He had 3 doctoral degrees, had published 42 papers, and had a collection of Earth specimens that would make any museum curator weep with envy. His office aboard the Council mothership was lined with holographic displays of Earth's wildlife. Pride of place went to the tigers. Always the tigers. "Behold," Quellic announced to the assembled Threat Assessment Committee, his 4 eye stalks quivering with academic superiority, "the apex predator of Earth, Panthera tigris, striped death, incarnate." The committee members leaned forward in their hovering seats, their various appendages twitching with interest. On the massive view screen behind Quellic, a Bengal tiger stalked through tall grass, muscles rippling under orange and black fur. "Note the stealth capabilities," Quellic continued, warming to his subject like a professor who'd finally cornered students who couldn't escape. "The retractable claws, the bite force of over 1,000 pounds per square inch. This creature has no natural predators. It sits at the very top of Earth's food chain." A junior analyst in the back raised a tentacle. "Commander, what about the bipedal species, the ones who wear clothing and build structures?" Quellic's eye stalks swiveled dismissively. "Humans? Irrelevant. They're merely the dominant prey species. Clever tool users, certainly, but physically inferior in every measurable way. No claws, no fangs, pathetically slow. They've simply learned to avoid the tigers through superior numbers and primitive weapons." The analyst looked like he wanted to say more, but Quellic was already moving on, clicking through slides with the confidence of a man who'd never been wrong about anything in his life. Which was his first mistake. His second mistake was about to be much, much bigger. "After 3 decades of careful observation, I can state with absolute certainty that any invasion of Earth must account for the tiger population first and foremost. They number only a few thousand, but their combat capabilities are extraordinary. The Council's military forces must be prepared." Grand Admiral Tsip, a crystalline being who communicated through color changes, flickered an alarmed shade of orange. "How do you propose we handle these apex predators, Commander?" Quellic smiled, which on his species looked disturbingly like melting cheese. "I've developed comprehensive protocols, tiger-proof armor for our troops, sonic deterrents calibrated to their hearing range, and most importantly, a diplomatic package designed to negotiate with the tigers directly." "You want to negotiate with animals?" Another committee member, this one resembling an angry fern, rustled skeptically. "Not animals, Counselor. Apex predators. The true power on Earth. Win over the tigers, and the humans will fall in line. It's basic xenosociology." It really wasn't. But nobody on the committee had actually been to Earth. They were all working off Quellic's reports, his data, his absolutely ironclad certainty that he understood how Earth worked. And in the Galactic Council, confidence often mattered more than accuracy. The vote was unanimous. The invasion fleet would launch within the month. Destination, Earth. Primary objective, secure an audience with the tigers and establish dominance over the apex predators before moving on to subjugate the primitive humans. As the committee filed out, already arguing about logistics and supply chains, Quellic stood alone in front of his beloved tiger footage. 30 years of research. Countless observation hours. Detailed behavioral analysis. He'd watched these magnificent creatures hunt, fight, and dominate their territory. He'd just never bothered to wonder why some of those tigers were behind fences. Or who'd built the fences. Or why the tigers seemed perfectly content to let the fence builders bring them food every day. But that was fine. He'd figure out those minor details during the invasion. After all, what could possibly go wrong? He was the expert. He had the degrees, the papers, the credentials. What he didn't have was a clue. And in about 3 weeks, that was going to become everyone's problem. The alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace on a Tuesday, which was really inconsiderate because Dave Henderson had just gotten his coffee exactly right. 3 sugars, splash of cream, still hot enough to feel like a warm hug. He was sitting in an incredibly uncomfortable blind in Ranthambore National Park, camera ready, waiting for a tiger, named Raja, to make his morning rounds. Dave had been filming wildlife documentaries for 15 years. He'd been chased by rhinos, sneezed on by elephants, and once had a very philosophical conversation with a drunk monkey in Thailand. He'd thought he'd seen everything. Then the sky opened up and puked out a spaceship. It wasn't a small spaceship either. This thing was the size of a football stadium, all chrome and glowing panels, humming with a sound that made Dave's fillings ache. It descended slowly, dramatically, like someone had given a UFO a theater degree. "Well," Dave said to his camera, "because talking to your equipment is totally normal when you work alone for months at a time. That's new." The ship landed about 200 meters from his blind, flattening a decent chunk of grassland in the process. Dave kept filming. What else was he supposed to do? Run? He was a documentary cameraman. If a meteor hit Earth, his last act would probably be adjusting the aperture. A ramp extended from the ship's belly with a hydraulic hiss that scared off every bird within a half-mile radius. Lights swirled. There might have been dramatic music, but that could have been Dave's imagination. Commander Quellick emerged first, flanked by a dozen heavily armed soldiers in what appeared to be tiger-proof armor. It was covered in stripes, because subtlety was dead. Right behind him came Lieutenant Fizzbang, whose actual name was unpronounceable by human tongues, but sounded like a carbonated beverage having an anxiety attack. Fizzbang was shorter than Quellick, with 6 arms and the energy of someone who'd had way too much caffeine and not enough adult supervision. "Commander," Fizzbang practically vibrated with excitement, "the atmospheric readings are within acceptable parameters, the gravity is manageable, and according to your research, we should encounter an apex predator within the next 7 minutes. "Excellent work, Lieutenant." Quellick adjusted his translator device, which looked like someone had crossbred a starfish with a telephone. "Prepare the diplomatic offerings. Remember, we must show respect to the true rulers of this planet." Dave zoomed in with his camera. The aliens were carrying what appeared to be large slabs of meat and several shiny objects that might have been giant laser pointers. He was so confused he forgot to drink his coffee. And that's when Raja decided to make his entrance. The tiger was a magnificent specimen, 400 pounds of muscle and attitude, with stripes that seemed to absorb sunlight. He emerged from the tree line with the casual confidence of someone who knew he was the biggest cat in the room, and everyone else was just snacks with anxiety. There! Quellick's eye stalks nearly exploded with excitement. An apex predator. "Lieutenant, initiate first contact protocols." Fizzbang fumbled with a portable speaker system, which crackled to life with a sound like a robot clearing its throat. The universal translator kicked in, and a voice boomed across the grassland in what the aliens believed was Tiger. "Greetings, Mighty Hunter. We come in peace. We wish to negotiate the terms of Earth's integration into the Galactic Council. We bring tribute and respect." Raja stopped walking. His ears twitched. He looked at the aliens with the expression of a cat who'd just been offered a bath. Dave couldn't breathe. He was laughing so hard he had to steady the camera with both hands. Tears streamed down his face. This was it. This was the moment that would define his entire career. Aliens were trying to negotiate with a tiger. "Show deference," Quellick hissed at his troops. "Lower your weapons. Present the offerings." The soldiers carefully placed the meat slabs on the ground and rolled what were definitely giant laser pointers across the grass. One of them even pulled out a massive cardboard box, because apparently Quellick's research had picked up on cats liking boxes, but had completely misunderstood the context. Raja watched this performance with the kind of bored patience that cats reserve for the profoundly stupid. Then he did what any self-respecting tiger would do when presented with free food by weird-smelling creatures. He charged. Not because he was particularly hungry or threatened, but because something was moving, it looked interesting, and tigers are basically giant murder machines who occasionally enjoy chaos. The aliens scattered like bowling pins. Fizzbang shrieked in a frequency that shattered Dave's coffee thermos. Quellick's eye stalks retracted so fast they made a popping sound. The soldiers fired their weapons, but they were set to stun, and apparently tiger hide was thick enough that Raja just looked mildly annoyed. The tiger took the meat, batted the laser pointer into a bush, and investigated the cardboard box with genuine interest. After a moment he sat down and began grooming himself, completely ignoring the aliens who were now hiding behind their ship. "Commander," Fizzbang wheezed from behind the landing strut, "the apex predator has accepted our tribute, but it also attempted to assert dominance. Clearly a test of our resolve," Quellick panted, trying to reclaim some dignity. We must return with a larger delegation, better offerings. The negotiations have begun well. Dave Henderson, still filming, still crying with laughter, watched the aliens retreat back into their ship. The ramp closed, the engines hummed, and the football stadium-sized spacecraft lifted off, leaving behind one confused tiger, several slabs of meat, and a cameraman who just captured the greatest footage in human history. Raja climbed into the cardboard box, decided it was acceptable, and took a nap. Dave grabbed his backup phone with shaking hands and started uploading the video before the aliens could come back and confiscate it. The file name he chose was simple: First Contact, We're All Doomed. Within 6 hours it would have 50 million views. Within 12, it would break the internet. And somewhere in orbit, Commander Quellick was already preparing his second diplomatic mission, completely unaware that he'd just become humanity's favorite meme. The video hit social media at approximately 3:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. By 3:17, it had been shared 6,000 times. By 3:20, someone had already made a dubstep remix of Fizzbang's Screaming. By 4 o'clock, the entire planet had collectively lost its mind. President Janet Kowalski was in the middle of a budget meeting when her chief of staff burst through the door, tablet in hand, face pale enough to suggest he'd either seen a ghost or checked his retirement portfolio. "Mr. President, we have a situation." Janet looked up from a spreadsheet that was making her reconsider every life choice that had led to this moment. "Is it worse than the deficit?" "Aliens just tried to negotiate with a tiger in India." She blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" He turned the tablet around. On screen, Commander Quellick was bowing to Raja while his troops laid out meat like they were catering a very strange barbecue. Janet watched in silence as the tiger charged, the aliens fled, and the entire diplomatic mission devolved into what could only be described as a Benny Hill sketch, with better special effects. "How many people have seen this?" she asked calmly, which was impressive considering her brain was currently doing backflips. "Current count is 63 million and climbing. Twitter crashed twice. Reddit has created 47 new subreddits. And someone started a GoFundMe to build a statue of the tiger." Janet pinched the bridge of her nose. "Get me the UN Secretary General, the Joint Chiefs, and whoever handles memes for the State Department. Also coffee, very strong coffee, possibly with whiskey." Across the Atlantic, Dr. Rajesh Patel was having a significantly better time. As a computational linguist specializing in xenolinguistics, which was previously an entirely theoretical field, he'd just won the academic lottery. The aliens had been broadcasting on multiple frequencies, and Rajesh had spent the last 2 hours decoding their transmissions. What he'd found was absolutely hilarious. "They think tigers are in charge," he announced to his research team via video call, barely suppressing giggles. "Like, genuinely in charge. Their entire threat assessment is based on the assumption that Panthera tigris is Earth's dominant species." His colleague in Tokyo choked on her tea. "What about humans?" "Apparently we're the prey species. Clever tool using prey, but prey nonetheless. Their commander has published 42 papers about Earth, and not one of them identifies humans as anything other than tiger support staff." The call erupted in laughter. Someone suggested they correct the aliens. Someone else suggested they absolutely not do that, and see how long the misunderstanding could continue. A third person was already writing the academic paper that would define their careers. Meanwhile, the internet was doing what the internet does best, turning a species-defining moment into comedy gold. The memes came fast and furious. Raja the Tiger as president of Earth. Comparison charts showing tiger versus human accomplishments, with tiger clearly winning. Motivational posters featuring Raja, with captions like, "Be so powerful that aliens negotiate with you instead of your pets." Someone created a Twitter account for Raja that gained 2 million followers in an hour. The bio read, "Supreme Leader of Earth, nap enthusiast, not interested in your galactic council." Tigergate merchandise appeared within hours. T-shirts, mugs, phone cases, all featuring variations of, "I for one welcome our new tiger overlords," and "In Raja we trust." An enterprising artist in Brooklyn started selling prints of Quellick bowing to various cats in increasingly ridiculous scenarios. The UN emergency session that evening was less a meeting and more an attempt to have serious discussions, while everyone desperately tried not to laugh. "Ladies and gentlemen," the Secretary General began, struggling to maintain diplomatic composure, "we are facing first contact with an extraterrestrial species. This should be treated with the gravity it deserves." Someone's phone buzzed. They glanced at it and immediately had to fake a coughing fit to cover their laughter. The meme showed Quellic's face photoshopped onto a student, asking, "Can I copy your homework?" with Raja responding, "Sure, but change it a bit so it doesn't look obvious." President Kowalski cleared her throat. "Dr. Patel, what exactly are the aliens saying in their broadcasts?" Rajesh pulled up his translations, still grinning. "They're warning other species to stay away from Earth because the apex predators are too dangerous. They've classified us as a level 9 death world specifically because of the tigers. They mention humans exactly twice, both times referring to us as the species that feeds the tigers." "Which is technically accurate," someone muttered. "They're planning a second diplomatic mission," Rajesh continued. "Bigger delegation, more tribute, formal negotiation protocols. They want to discuss Earth joining the Galactic Council, but only if the tigers approve." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "So," Janet said slowly, "we have two options. We correct them immediately and explain that humans are the dominant species. Or we see how long we can keep this going," finished the British ambassador, who'd clearly been waiting his entire career for a moment this absurd. The French representative raised a hand. "I vote for option 2. This is the funniest thing that has ever happened in the history of diplomacy." "We need to consider the ramifications," the German chancellor said, though even she was smiling. "If they believe tigers are in charge, any negotiations will be meaningless." "Unless," Janet said thoughtfully, "we negotiate on behalf of the tigers?" The room erupted in discussion. It was ridiculous. It was unprecedented. It was potentially dangerous. It was also, everyone had to admit, incredibly tempting. Dr. Patel pulled up another transmission. "They're asking for an audience with Earth's leadership. They want to meet the tigers formally. They're offering technology, resources, and a seat on the Galactic Council." "For the tigers," Janet clarified. "For the tigers," Rajesh confirmed. Someone laughed. Then someone else. Within seconds, the entire UN Security Council was losing it. Decades of diplomatic training crumbling in the face of the most absurd first contact scenario in human history. "All right," President Kowalski said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Let's do this properly. Dr. Patel, keep monitoring their communications. Someone get me Dave Henderson, the cameraman, and someone else find me the most chill, photogenic cat we have available." "Madam President," her chief of staff said carefully, "are you seriously suggesting we negotiate with aliens while pretending cats are in charge?" Janet smiled. "Chief, humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the invention of Twitter. If we can't have a little fun with first contact, what's even the point?" The vote was unanimous. Operation Tiger Gate was officially a go. And somewhere in orbit, Commander Quellic was preparing his formal diplomatic credentials, completely unaware that he was about to negotiate Earth's future with a house cat named Mittens. Dave Henderson had expected many things when he woke up that morning. International fame, sure. A Netflix documentary deal, maybe. A call from the President of the United States asking him to commit what was essentially interstellar fraud? That one was new. "Let me get this straight," Dave said into his phone, still in his hotel room in India, surrounded by half-eaten room service and about 40 news notifications. "You want me to pretend to translate for a cat to aliens who think the cat is in charge of Earth?" "That's correct, Mr. Henderson." President Kowalski's voice was calm, professional, and barely suppressing laughter. "We need someone who understands tiger behavior, has footage of the first contact, and can keep a straight face during absurd situations. Your resume suggests you're uniquely qualified." "My resume is mostly got chased by animals and didn't die." "Perfect. Can you be in Washington by tomorrow?" Dave looked at his camera equipment, then at the view counter on his viral video, which had just passed 200 million. "Will there be hazard pay?" "Mr. Henderson, you'll be negotiating with aliens on behalf of a cat. If you survive, you can name your price." 12 hours later, Dave was in a secure facility outside Washington being briefed by people with more letters after their names than he had in his entire vocabulary. Dr. Patel was there, explaining alien linguistics. Several zoologists were on standby, and in the corner, in a very expensive cat carrier, was Mittens. Mittens was a 3-year-old orange tabby who belonged to Dr. Patel's neighbor and had exactly one personality trait: aggressive chill. This cat could sleep through a tornado. Someone had once placed a cucumber behind him to test the viral cat fear theory, and Mittens had just eaten it. "This is your diplomat," Dr. Patel said, opening the carrier. Mittens emerged, surveyed the room with the expression of a cat who'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it, and immediately found a cardboard box someone had left near the wall. He climbed in and went to sleep. "He's perfect," Dave said, sincerely. The plan was simple, which should have been everyone's first warning sign. The aliens had requested a formal meeting aboard their mothership. Dave would accompany Mittens as the official interpreter. Dr. Patel would provide translations of the alien speech through a concealed earpiece. Dave would then make up completely ridiculous cat translations, and everyone would just see what happened. "What if they scan me and detect the earpiece?" Dave asked. "Then we're all very sorry, and there was a terrible misunderstanding," President Kowalski said. "But according to our intelligence, their security protocols are designed to detect weapons and hostile intent, not communication devices. They're expecting a primitive translator accompanying an apex predator. They won't be looking for deception." "Because they're idiots," someone muttered. "Because they're operating on 30 years of confidently incorrect research," Dr. Patel corrected. "There's a difference." The next morning, the alien shuttle landed on the White House lawn, because Quellick had a flair for the dramatic. Dave stood waiting, with Mittens in his arms, wearing his best "I totally do this all the time" expression. Behind him, a very nervous Secret Service detail tried to figure out how to protect the president from aliens, while also not laughing at the fact that their diplomatic representative was a cat. Commander Quellick emerged from the shuttle, followed by Lieutenant Fizbang and an honor guard in fresh, tiger-proof armor. Quellick's eye stalks practically vibrated with excitement. "Greetings," his translator crackled. "We are honored that Earth's leadership has agreed to meet with us. This must be a juvenile apex predator, yes? We understand the larger specimens are too dangerous for transport." Dave smiled. In his ear, Dr. Patel whispered the translation. Dave cleared his throat. "The Supreme Leader appreciates your caution. He has agreed to this meeting as a gesture of goodwill." Mittens yawned. Quellick bowed so low his eye stalks touched the ground. "We are humbled. Please, follow us to the shuttle. We have prepared accommodations suitable for one of such status." The shuttle interior was like someone had designed a spaceship after watching nature documentaries and fundamentally misunderstanding everything. There were scratching posts, multiple levels for climbing, and in the center, a throne that was clearly just a very expensive cat tree. Mittens took one look at it, meowed once, and claimed the highest perch. Then he began grooming himself, completely ignoring the dozen aliens watching him with reverence. "Magnificent," Fizbang whispered. "Such confidence, such grace." Dave had to bite his tongue to keep from laughing. In his ear, Dr. Patel was making a sound like a tea kettle trying not to explode. The mothership was even more ridiculous. Quellick led them through corridors decorated with holographic tigers, past soldiers who stopped and saluted Mittens, into a conference room that looked like a pet store had collided with the U. "Please," Quellick gestured to a raised platform covered in soft materials. "We hope this is comfortable for the Supreme Leader." Mittens investigated the platform, decided it was acceptable, and immediately knocked a datapad off the edge just to watch it fall. The aliens gasped in awe. "Team tests your worthiness," Dave said solemnly. "By destroying your possessions, he judges whether you are too attached to material things." "Profound," Quellick breathed. "Truly, the apex predators of Earth possess wisdom beyond our understanding." The formal negotiations began. Quellick presented gifts. Advanced laser pointers that could cut through solid steel, premium territory in the form of an entire renovated space station shaped like a giant cat tree, and tribute consisting of what appeared to be alien tuna. Mittens sniffed the tuna, took one bite, and walked away. "He finds your offering acceptable but not impressive," Dave translated. "He expects better quality next time." Fizbang frantically made notes. "What does the Supreme Leader require? We can provide anything." Dave paused. In his ear, Dr. Patel whispered, "Oh no, Dave, don't you dare." "Cardboard boxes," Dave said. "The highest quality cardboard boxes from across the galaxy. Also, small objects he can knock off tables. And windows, lots of windows, with birds outside." "Brilliant!" Quellick's eye stalks quivered. "A test of our resourcefulness. We must provide entertainment for the Supreme Leader. Lieutenant, dispatch scouts to find the finest boxes in the quadrant." Fizbang saluted and rushed off. Mittens, completely unaware he'd just demanded tribute from an alien empire, found a sunbeam coming through the viewport and collapsed into it for a nap. "Now," Quellick said, settling into his chair with the air of someone about to discuss something important, "we must address Earth's integration into the Galactic Council. We offer advanced technology, interstellar trade routes, and protection from hostile species. In return, we ask only for the apex predator's permission to establish diplomatic relations. Dave pretended to listen to Mittens, who was snoring. The Supreme Leader asks, what's in it for him specifically? We can enhance his territory, provide superior prey animals, upgrade his hunting grounds with holographic simulations. Mittens woke up, stretched, and knocked over a glass of alien water that was sitting on the edge of a console. It shattered dramatically. Every alien in the room froze. Says, Dave improvised, that your offerings bore him. He requires more substantial proof of your commitment. Anything! Quellic was sweating now, a disturbing sight on a being that resembled a sentient mushroom. Name your terms. And that's when Dave Henderson, wildlife cameraman and accidental diplomat, had a thought that would either make him a hero or start an interstellar incident. The Supreme Leader demands a demonstration. Show us why Earth should join your council. What threats do we face? What enemies do you protect against? He will not commit his world to an alliance without understanding the stakes. Quellic's eye stalks drooped. There are many dangers in the galaxy. Hostile species, resource conflicts, existential threats. Mittens chose that exact moment to cough up a hairball on the throne. He's unimpressed, Dave said flatly. Show him these threats, or this meeting is over. The aliens scrambled. Fizzbang returned with armfuls of cardboard boxes, which Mittens immediately climbed into. Quellic pulled up star charts, tactical displays, recordings of dangerous species, and Dave watched, taking mental notes, while a cat named Mittens accidentally negotiated humanity's entry into galactic politics by taking a nap in a box. It was, he reflected, either the stupidest or most brilliant thing he'd ever been part of. Possibly both. Lieutenant Fizzbang was not having a good day. First, the Supreme Leader had rejected the premium alien tuna. Then he'd spent 6 hours sourcing cardboard boxes from 17 different star systems. And now, while reviewing surveillance footage to document this historic first contact, he'd noticed something deeply troubling. The humans were everywhere. Not hiding from the tigers, not cowering in fear. They were building cities, flying aircraft, operating the very facility where they'd picked up the interpreter. In one frame, a human was literally walking a tiger on a leash at something called a sanctuary. Fizzbang's 6 hands trembled as he compiled the evidence. He found satellite imagery of humans constructing massive structures while tigers slept in reserves. He found footage of humans in vehicles, humans in spacesuits on their primitive space station, humans doing something called extreme ironing on mountains. The humans weren't prey, they were the dominant species, which meant Commander Quellic's 30-year career was built on a foundation of spectacular wrongness. Fizzbang burst into the conference room where Quellic was presenting Mittens with box number 47. Commander, sir, we have a situation. Quellic's eye stalks swiveled irritably. Lieutenant, we are in the middle of delicate negotiations. The humans are in charge, Fizzbang blurted, not the tigers. The humans built everything. They've domesticated the apex predators. They've been to their own moon. Sir, we've been negotiating with someone's pet. The room went silent. Mittens, oblivious, batted at a laser-pointered dot. Dave's stomach dropped. In his ear, Dr. Patel whispered a single word. Run. Quellic stared at Fizzbang, then at his datapad, then at Mittens, who chose that moment to fall off the cat tree trying to catch the laser dot. No, Quellic said quietly. No, that's impossible. My research is wrong, sir. Fizzbang pulled up image after image. Look, the humans control everything. The tigers are confined to small territories managed by humans. The humans have governments, technology, weapons. Sir, they've been humoring us. Dave tried to look innocent. I have no idea what he's talking about. Mittens, sensing the tension, or possibly just being a cat, reached out and knocked Quellic's research tablet off the table. It clattered to the floor, screen flickering through 30 years of carefully compiled data. All of it wrong. Quellic's eye stalks retracted so far into his head they were barely visible. A low sound emerged from somewhere in his body, like a balloon deflating in slow motion. 30 years, he whispered. 42 papers. 3 doctoral dissertations. The keynote speech at the Xenobiology conference. The TED Talk equivalent on Zephron Prime. Sir, I told the entire Galactic Council that tigers were in charge. Quellic's voice cracked. I wrote protocols, I designed armor, I created a 17-step diplomatic framework for negotiating with large felines. Fizzbang backed away slowly. Perhaps we should... Sound the alarm! Quellic pointed at Dave with a trembling appendage. This human has made fools of us. Earth is hostile. Prepare for actual combat operations. This is a deception, an act of war. Dave grabbed Mittens and bolted for the door. Red lights flooded the corridor. Sirens blared. Somewhere, a computerized voice announced in flawless English. Security breach. Hostile species detected. All personnel to battle stations. I feel like this is going well, Dave panted as he ran, Mittens tucked under his arm like a furry football. In his ear, Dr. Patel was shouting coordinates to the shuttle bay. Behind him, he could hear Quellic's breakdown echoing through the ship's PA system. They put them in Zeus. The humans put the axe predators in Zeus. For fun. What kind of species? Dave reached the shuttle, dove inside, and hit every button that looked like it might mean, go. The autopilot engaged, apparently programmed to return to Earth in case of emergency. As the shuttle detached and streaked toward the planet below, Dave looked at Mittens, who was calmly licking his paw. We really should have thought this through better, Dave said. Mittens meowed, which Dave chose to interpret as agreement. Behind them, the mothership lit up like a Christmas tree, every weapon system charging, every soldier scrambling, and Commander Quelk having what could only be described as a complete professional meltdown. Humanity's first diplomatic contact with aliens was officially going sideways. And somewhere in Washington, President Kowalski was watching the shuttle's descent on radar, pouring herself that whiskey she'd mentioned earlier, and wondering if her legacy would be the president who pranked aliens into almost declaring war. The shuttle hit atmosphere. Dave held on tight. This was either about to get much better or catastrophically worse. The alien mothership's weapons charged with a sound like reality having second thoughts. Every news network on Earth broadcast the sight. A football stadium-sized spacecraft bristling with enough firepower to glass a continent, hovering over Washington, D.C., very clearly about to have opinions. President Janet Kowalski stood on the White House lawn, hands clasped behind her back, looking remarkably calm for someone standing directly under an alien warship. Her security detail looked significantly less calm. Several of them were actively praying. Madam President, her chief of staff hissed, perhaps we should relocate to the bunker. And miss this? Janet smiled. Not a chance. The ship's PA system crackled. Quellic's voice, raw with betrayal and wounded academic pride, boomed across the city. Humans of Earth, you have deceived us. You have made mockery of the Galactic Council. Prepare for... Janet raised a bullhorn she'd borrowed from the Secret Service. Commander Quellic, before you do something we'll both regret, let me show you why that's a terrible idea. A massive holographic display materialized in the air, courtesy of some very hastily assembled human technology and several engineers who definitely deserved raises. Dr. Patel was running the presentation remotely, pulling up files faster than Quellic could process. Let's start with history, Janet's voice carried clearly. Humans survived ice ages that killed most megafauna. We walked out of Africa with nothing but pointy sticks and attitude. We've had 467 wars, most of them against ourselves, and we're still here. Images flashed. Ancient humans hunting mammoths, armies clashing through millennia, cities burning and rebuilding. We survived the Black Death, which killed a third of Europe. We looked at a plague that liquefied organs and said, well, let's just work around it. We invented antibiotics, vaccines, and hand sanitizer. Quellic's weapons systems hesitated, calibration wavering. We split the atom, Janet continued, warming to her subject. Then we immediately used it to end a war, scared ourselves so badly we created an entire field of international relations just to avoid doing it again, and somehow didn't extinct ourselves. We've been to our moon, we've sent robots to other planets. We did all of this while arguing about pineapple on pizza. That's not relevant to, Quellic started. We invented extreme sports, Janet interrupted. Humans voluntarily throw themselves out of aircraft for fun. We ski down mountains. We surf tsunamis. We have an event called the Tour de France where people ride bicycles up mountains for weeks and we just cheer them on. We invented something called free solo climbing, where we scale vertical cliffs without ropes, because apparently regular climbing wasn't scary enough. The hologram shifted to footage of base jumpers, big wave surfers, and a man wingsuiting through a narrow canyon. Fizzbang made a sound like a garbage disposal eating silverware. But here's my favorite part. Janet's smile turned sharp. You want to know why you should be terrified of humans, Commander? It's not because we're stronger than tigers. We're not. It's not because we're better armed than you. We're probably not. She paused for effect. It's because we befriended the apex predators. We looked at tigers, lions, bears, wolves, creatures that could kill us with a swipe. And we said, I want one. As a pet. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We put tigers in zoos, not because we're afraid of them, but because we like looking at them. We did this for fun, Commander. The hologram showed images of humans cuddling with tigers, walking with lions, swimming with sharks. We have a continent called Australia where everything is actively trying to kill you, and 11 million people live there by choice. We have a state called Florida where the humans are so aggressively chaotic that Florida Man is a globally recognized warning label. Bizbang pulled up Earth data on his datapad, scrolling frantically. His eyes widened. Commander, there's a human subculture called storm chasers who drive toward tornadoes. There's something called freediving, where they hold their breath and swim to lethal depths. Commander, they have competitive eating contests, where they voluntarily make themselves sick. And you thought, Janet said softly, that you could invade us because you were scared of tigers? Quellic's eye stalks drooped. On the view screen, he looked like someone whose entire worldview had just been fed through a wood chipper. We don't want a war, Commander, Janet continued. Honestly, we think you're hilarious. But if you insist on threatening us, you should know. We're the species that looked at a death world and decided to make it home. We're the species that domesticated apex predators and put them on leashes. We're the species that went to space in tin cans held together with math and hope. She lowered the bullhorn slightly. We're also the species that sent you mittens as a diplomat and you fell for it. So maybe consider that we're better at this than you thought. Silence. The weapons systems powered down. Quellic slumped in his command chair, eye stalks drooping in defeat. I need to rewrite my dissertation, he said quietly. You need to write several dissertations, Fizbang added helpfully. Also maybe a formal apology. Also possibly retire to a remote moon and change your name. The mothership's PA clicked on one final time. Earth remains uncontacted. This first contact event did not occur. We will return in several decades when we have conducted proper research. Please forget this happened. We're definitely not forgetting this happened, someone shouted from the crowd that had gathered. This is going in the history books. The mothership engaged its engines and began a slow, dignified retreat from Earth's orbit. Within hours it had jumped to hyperspace, presumably to find a nice quiet nebula where Quell could process his feelings. Dave Henderson landed his shuttle on the White House lawn 10 minutes later, still holding Mittens, who had slept through the entire confrontation. How'd it go? Dave asked Janet. We're either famous or about to be invaded in 30 years, she replied. Also, you're getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Can Mittens get one too? Janet looked at the cat, who yawned enormously and stretched. Why not? He's earned it. 3 months later, a statue of Mittens was unveiled in Washington, D.C. The plaque read, Supreme Leader of Earth, 2025. Negotiated first contact. Very good boy. Commander Quellic published a new paper titled, Why Earth is a Death World and Humans Are Clinically Insane, a Comprehensive Reassessment. It won 17 academic awards and became required reading at every xenobiology program in the galaxy. Dave Henderson got his Netflix documentary deal, plus a book contract, plus enough money to never have to sleep in an uncomfortable blind again. He still did, though, because tigers were cool, and someone had to film them. Mittens returned to his normal life of napping, knocking things off tables, and occasionally being worshipped by internet strangers, who knew he'd once represented Earth to an alien species. And humanity added another line to its resume, confused an entire alien civilization by being ourselves. It wasn't the weirdest thing we'd ever done, but it was definitely in the top 10.